Hey there, amazing people. I'm thrilled to have you here today. It's a pleasure to have you join us as we uncover the secrets of Minotaure. Minotaure was a surrealist-oriented magazine founded by Albert Skira and East. Tériade in Paris and published between 1933 and 1939. Minotaure published on the plastic arts, poetry, and literature, avant-garde, as well as articles on esoteric and unusual aspects of literary and art history. Also included were psychoanalytical studies and artistic aspects of anthropology and ethnography. It was a lavish and extravagant magazine by the standards of the eras, profusely illustrated with high-quality reproductions of art, often in color. In this section, we'll be shedding light on history and its impact on our understanding of the subject. The review was originally founded by East, Tériade, Stratus, Eleftheriadis and Albert Skira with the desire to produce a lavish magazine on the plastic arts, poetry, music, architecture, ethnography and mythology, theatre, psychoanalytical studies and observations. Although not intended to be strictly a surrealist review, Albert Skira had been associating with André Breton and others in the movement and invited their input, even before the first issue was published. Skira's only restriction for Breton was that he not use the review as a forum to advocate his political views. The original editor was East, Tériade, but that role was soon taken over by Skira, who formed an editorial committee that included André Breton, Marcel Duchamp, Paul Eluard, Maurice Hine, and Pierre Mabille, giving it a heavy surrealist bias early on. East, Tériade remained involved as the artistic director for several years, but ultimately departed in December 1937, in part due to the ever-increasing surrealist direction of the review, which only left Minotaure under the even greater influence of André Breton and the Surrealist. By 1939, André Breton had a falling out with Paul Eluard, and Eluard and Marcel Duchamp left the editorial committee as well. Breton had virtually taken over editorship of Minotaure by the 1939 issue. However, his tenure was short-lived with the outbreak of World War II, an exodus of surrealists to the United States, and Albert Skira's return to Switzerland in the following months. The name Minotaure is attributed to Georges Bataille and André Marsan, suggested during a meeting with Vitric, Desnos, and East. Tériade, who were in favor of calling the review L'Age d'Or. The theme of the Minotaure and the Labyrinth had already appeared in the work of several artists and writers including Georges Bataille, André Breton, Max Ernst, André Marsan, as well as a number of drawings that Pablo Picasso had made on Greek mythology subjects. In the age of Freud, the metaphor of the Minotaure and the Labyrinth had been popular in several circles of intellectuals in the Urs and Urs, the Labyrinth being analogous to the mind, the Minotaure representing mysterious irrational impulses hidden within, and Theseus the conscious mind, entering the labyrinth and slaying the Minotaure, emerging victorious, with a greater self-knowledge, a paradigm for psychoanalyst and the surrealist theatre as well. Minotaure was a luxurious review in its day, featuring original artworks on the cover by prominent artists like Matisse, Picasso, Duchamp, Mir, and Dahl, and it grew more lavish with each passing year. Some volumes had various entries printed on papers of different colors, textures, and thicknesses bound into one. The drawings of artists were sometimes reproduced on fine art papers, like the originals. Later volumes featured color insets, high-quality tipped-in color plates, an element that was later to become a trademark in Skira's art book series published after the war. Minotaure had 800 subscribers when the first issue was published in June 1933. The original selling price was 25 francs no, going up to 30 francs no, with the double issues selling for 40 francs no, and 60 francs no. Due to financial difficulties, it was published at irregular intervals. The British art patron, collector and poet, Edward James, soon came to be an important sponsor and advisor of the magazine. With an international circulation in several European counties, the journal was a significant element in Surrealism's rise from a relatively obscure circle of poets, artists, and intellectuals in the eras to a major movement of 20th century art. It is a significant and historical reference for information on surrealism and has been the subject of 2 facsimile reprints. It was one in a succession of Surrealist reviews including La Revolution Surrealist 1924-1929 and Le Surrealisme au service de la Révolution 1930-1933, Minotaure 1933-1939 and VVV 1942-1944. In fact, in the last issue of 1933, Breton published a full-page advertisement for the first issue of Minotaure 1933. Minotaure was by far the most lavish, inclusive, and widely distributed of the 4. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of contributors and content as we dive into its profound implications. Minotaure published original poetry, automatic writing, fiction, and high-quality reproductions of artworks, as well as important essays and writings on surrealist theory and philosophy. In addition to the writings of André Breton, Paul Eluard, and Benjamin Puret, Salvador Dal, often underestimated as a writer, contributed essays to 8 issues, including writings on art theory like his paranoid critical technique. Maurice Hine, one of the editorial committee members, was a major figure in rediscovering and publishing the work of the Marquis de Sade, and he produced articles for most volumes of Minotaure. The participation of East Tériade added a significant dimension to Minotaure, with contributions in most of the issues on art and artists beyond the Surrealist movement, like Matisse and Fauvism. Surrealist views on architecture were presented in articles by Tristan Tzara, Salvador Dal, and Roberto Matta. Other poets and writers included Georges Bataille, Jacques Bruniès, Rin Crevel, Paul Fargu, Georges Hunnet, Edward James, Marcel Jean, Henry Michaud, Jacques Provert, Herbert Reed, and Pierre Révely. Several important artists of the 20th century received some of their earliest or first recognition in Minotaure, like Hans Belmer and his doll, Victor Bronner, Paul Delva, Alberto Giacometti, Roberto Matta, Kurt Seligman, and Frida Kahlo. The Balthus painting The Street 1933, Museum of Modern Art, New York, was reproduced for the first time in Minotaure. Minotaure was the first to reproduce Picasso's sculptures too. Mexican printmaker Jose Guadalupe Posada was featured in one issue. Many important photographers contributed regularly or were featured in the journal, including Bill Brandt, Brassai, Dora Maar, Man Ray, and Roel Ubach. Other diverse and unexpected figures such as Le Corbusier, André Derain, and Ambroise Vollard all contributed articles at one time or another, as did composers Kurt Weill and Igor Markevich. Physician and writer Pierre Mabille, with expertise on anthropology, sociology, and medicine, was on the editorial committee and contributed articles to many of the volumes. Concordantly, Minotaure kept an open house to the essays from a wide range of philosophers, psychologists, anthropologists, historians, and other specialists, including Jean Wall, Roger Cayles, Pierre Curfian, and Michel Lyres. Minotaure published the first essays of Jacques Lacan, the noted French psychiatrist and philosopher. The entire second issue was devoted to Mission Dakar Djibouti, an expedition to Africa commissioned by the French state and conducted by the Ethnography du Tricadero under the direction of Marcel Breuil from 1931 to 1933. This science-based, anthropological project was conducted to survey, document, collect, and examine ethnographic dances, music, paintings, arts, and cultures of Africa, although it was not without some political and economic motivations, bolstering the French colonial position in Africa in opposition to the growing British influence there. More than 3,000 objects were deposited in the museum, along with 6,000 photographs, 1,600 meters of films, and extensive field notes, many of which were featured in Minotaure. In this section, we'll be exploring facsimile reprints. 2 facsimile editions of the complete 13-volume journal have been published. The first facsimile was published in 1968 by Arnaud Press, New York, with an introduction in English and French by Albert Skira. The Arnaud Press edition was in full red cloth hardcover volumes 13x11 in. including illustrations, advertisements, and a cumulative index, Vol. I 1933, Vol. 2, Vol. 3, Vol. 4. The second facsimile edition was published in 1981 by Editions d'Art Albert Skira and Primaires Runis, Genève, Lausanne. The Skira facsimile edition, Minotaure. Revue Artistique et Littéraire, was published in quarto format 12.6 x 10 in. Hardbound with dust jackets and slipcase in 3 volumes, Vol. I 1933, Vol. 2, Vol. 3. In this section, we'll be exploring No. 1, June 1, 1933. Cover by Pablo Picasso, Pierre Revely, Paul Yard, Maurice Raynal, Andrew Breton, East, Tériade, Rincredel, Marcel Jean, East, Tériade, Marcel Jean, Max Raphael, Andrew Breton, Pablo Picasso, Pierre Revely, Maurice Raynal, East, Tériade, Max Raphael, Maurice Hein, D.A. Fahrenheit, de Sade, Andrew Masson, Paul Yard, Salvador Dal, Jacques M. Lacan, Kurt Weill, Michel Lyres. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of No. 2, June 1, 1933 and discover its practical applications. Cover by Gaston Louis Roux. Mission Dakar Djibouti, Paul Rivet and Georges Henry Riveri. Marcel Griol, Eric Lutton, Marcel Griol, André Scheffer, Deborah Lifsig, Michel Lyres. Documents on and so on. Numerous reproductions of scenes, types, sites, objects, and various documents relating to the regions traversed by the mission. As we progress, let's shine a spotlight on No. 3-4, December 12, 1933 and examine its intricate interplay within our topic. Cover by André Derain, Man Ray, Nada, Brassé, André Derain, East, Tériade, Picasso, Matisse, Braque, Derain, Miro, Bors, Dal, Baudin, Ed, Clapperty, Dr. Jock Locon, Benjamin Puret, Paul Chardin, Maurice Raynal, Brancusi, Despier, Giacometti, Laurens, Lipschitz, Mail, Andrew Breton, Ferdinand Bruckner, XXX, Salvador Dal. Photographs of Barcelona by Man Ray, Photographs of Paris by Brassé, Maurice Hein, Igor Markevich, Jean Froys Whitman, Tristan Tzara, Paul Eliade. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of No. 5, May 12, 1934 as we dive into its profound implications. Cover by Francisco Bors, Maurice Hein, Jean Lovey, King Kong, Max Ernst, Andrew Breton, Paul Eliade. Color reproduction of the epenal image. Rin Crevel, Salvador Dal, Roger Cailles, Man Ray, Georges Hubnett, Shida Kiriko, East, Tériade, with a colored inset of a painting by Pablo Picasso. Reproductions of paintings, sculptures and drawings by Balthus, Baudin, Bors, Braque, Dal, Ernst, Gargalo, Giacometti, Huff, T. Laurens, Lipschitz, Mans, Miro, Picasso, Ratner, Roger, Roux, and Tanguy. In this chapter, we'll be shedding light on No. 6, December 5, 1934 and its role in shaping our understanding. Cover by Marcel Duchamp, D. Pierre Mabille, Bill Brandt, Brassé, Paul Yard, Blake, Goethe, Delacroix, Arnon, Valentine Hugo, Lamotte Faubert, Raham, Oral, Poe, Monet, Baudelaire, Reading, Lautremont, Dal, Carroll, Nouveau Rodin, Mallam, Rops, Renoir, Matisse, Maeterlinck, Min, Apollinaire, Picasso, Ravire, Revedy, Derain, Matisse, Breton Derain, Sara, Up, T. Eliade, Ernst, Tanguy, Puret, Picasso, Char, Kandinsky, Ambroise Vollard, Paul Very, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Jean Wool, C.F., Remuse, Henry Charpentier, Stéphane Malon, Len Paul Fardou, Hans Belmer, Salvador Dal, Pierre Curthien, D. Lot Wolfe, André Breton, André Baudin, Louise de Vilmorin, Charles Henry Puch, Maurice Hine, Elie Faure, East, Tériade, André Breton, Preface André Breton, Poems by Breton, Puret, Liard, Giselle Prassinos, Pierre-Jean Joyve, Benjamin Puret, Paul Liard, André Breton, XXX. The time has come to unravel the secrets behind No. 7 June 10, 1935 and gain a deeper understanding. Cover by Joan Mere, E. Tériade, Man Ray, Roger Cailles. Photographic documents by Le Charles, Henry McCann, Jacques Barron, Paul Elliott. Illustrations by Belmer and Man Ray, Maurice Raynal, or text N. Cowlers, Maurice Hine. Young. Photography by Brasset and Man Ray, Georges Pudelco, Paolo Axello, Jacques Delamain. Photography by Fisher, André Breton. Photography by Brasset and Rodi Andrew, Salvador Dal. A Katijian. Photography by Juliette Lasser, Balthus, Georges Lafourcade, Man Ray, Herbert Reed, Paul Recht. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of No. 8 June 15, 1936 and discover its practical applications. Cover by Salvador Dal, Pierre Mabille. East, Tériade, André Breton, Benjamin Puret. Decalcomania illustrations by Jacqueline Breton, Oscar Dominguez, Georges Hudnett, Marcel Jean, and Yves Tanguy. André Breton. Drawings by Max Ernst, Maurice Hine, Salvador Dal, Georges Bataille, Edward James. Drawings by Salvador Dal. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of No. 9 October 15, 1936 and exploring its real-world applications. Cover by Henry Matisse, East. Tériade, Roger Cailles, Maurice Raynal. Edward James, The Marvel of Minutinous, Color Inset Jane Seymour by Hans Holbein. André Breton. 12 Portraits of Symbolist Poets. 3 watercolors by Picasso, 1 color inset. Lionel Venturi. 16 unpublished reproductions of works by Xan. Jacques Provert. 17 unpublished reproductions of Boeotian terracottas from the National Museum of Athens. Georges Duffwit. 9 reproductions of the latest works of Degas. Audiberti. Maurice Hine. 8 reproductions of old engravings. Edward James. 3 reproductions in color insets. Salvador Dal. Le Corbusier. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into No. 10 December 1937 and its impact on our understanding. Cover Byron Magritte, Harold Muller, It's a Bird. André Breton. Portraits by Lichtenberg, Grab, Brissett, Roussel, Koffer, Fourneret. Xavier Fourneret. Illustrations by Wolfgang Pollen. Franz Koffer. Illustrations by Max Ernst. J.G. Posada, Benjamin Puret. Pierre Mabille. Reproductions by Rob. Flood and Man Ray. Jean Lovey. Comments by Gilbert Lee. Roll You Back. Man Ray. Maurice Hine. Paul Elliott. André Breton. G. de Chirico. Max Ernst. Rin Magritte. Joan Mere. Pablo Picasso. And Man Ray. Marcel Duchamp. Reproduction of works from Hans Arp, Hans Belmer, Victor Bronner, Serge Brignini, Cornell, Salvador Dal, Paul Delver, Oscar Dominguez, Marcel Duchamp, Espinoza, Max Ernst, Georges Hudnett, Rin Magritte, Juan Miro, Henry Moore, Paul Nash, Wolfgang Pollen, Roland Penrose, Remedios Voro, Kurt Seligman, J. Stiersky, and Yves Tanguy. Let's now venture into the realm of No. 11, May 15, 1938, and explore the fascinating intricacies it holds. Cover by Max Ernst, Pierre Mabille, Albert Guin, Pierre Mabille, Georges Pudelko, Jean Cazza, Maurice Hine, Georges Hubnet, Paul Recht, Jacques Celsius, Brunius, Matt Ikaran, Paul Elliott, Nicholas Cullers, Benjamin Purit, Paul Recht, photography by Brasset after Jacques Berthier, reproductions of drawings by Andremassen and Georges Seurat, paintings by Hans Arp, Max Ernst, Yves Tanguy, Wolfgang Pollen, Ecole de Botticelli, Periodico Simo, Bartolomeo Benito. Get ready for an enlightening exploration as we dig into No. 1213, May 12, 1939, and understand its role in the broader context. Cover by Andremassen, with inner cover by Diego Rivera, G. H. Lichtenberg, Göttingen 1798, Getting 1798. Translation and illustrations by Wolfgang Pollen. Color insert of a painting by Erin Boldo. Andrew Breton. Color inserts, paintings by Chirico, Tanguy, Pollen, Ford, Motta, and Seligman. Reproductions of paintings, Bronner, Dominguez, Francis, Frida Rivera, and Ubach. Pierre Kerthian. Madeleine Landsberg. Andrew Breton. Photography by Manuel Alvarez Bravo. Pierre Mabille. Kurt Seligman. Benjamin Purit. Long Action. Kurt Muller. Notes from the editor. Pierre Mabille. Dr. Pierre Menard. Len Korkuff. Jean Giono. I'm here to provide you with the best information, so let me know what else you'd like to learn about.